Hey, what's up guys? My name is Samuel Leeds. I'm a property investor, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the pros and the cons versus buying flats as investments, apartments, and just straight houses and homes. Is it better to buy flats or houses? What gives you the best return on investment? And should you consider flats when you're looking to buy your first property investment? So here are my overall thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer. I personally prefer houses, and I'll tell you why in a moment, unless the flats are particularly unique. And let me explain why. So firstly, the good things about buying flats, the reason that people are attracted to buying flats is that they're cheap. So you can buy flats in the Midlands around Birmingham for like 30, 40, 50,000 pounds. And they are in decent areas. They do rent out okay. And I think the fact that they're so cheap really does attract people to want to buy them. Secondly, the good thing about flats is it's really easy to do your research on a flat, because especially if it's in like a block, there's so many comparables. So you can see this one sold for 50 grand, this one sold for 55, this one sold for 53, and you can look and you can see I'm right with all the comparables. So working out whether you're getting a good deal and working out what the rent's going to be, because there's so many like for like comparables in that same block, it makes it really easy to do your research. And the third reason is because there's really low maintenance. So the garden's communal, if there's a garden at all. Everything's all shared and communal. The building itself, it's not your building to have to maintain. So you usually with flats, and I've got flats and I've also got houses, and there are pretty low maintenance. The repairs and things that tend to be quite low with flats. So that's the good. The bad. So in my experience, and I'm not saying this is always the case, because it does depend on different factors, but I don't own loads of flats, but the flats that I did buy in 2009, 2010, almost 10 years ago, haven't hardly appreciated in value at all. They've not gone up in value. And I think they did go up in value in the 90s. Flats absolutely went crazy. I think that was partly because of the series, and I'm totally serious when I say this. The series Friends, and they're all living, and it's like a cool lifestyle. They're living in apartments. What happened in New York, everyone wanted to live in an apartment, and then usually England copies and follows America in some instances. And then suddenly it became really trendy, like in the 90s, and everyone wanted to live in an apartment. But then when I bought an apartment in 2009, I bought a few, that's kind of died. Now everyone wants houses. And I've found in the last decade, apartments have become less and less popular. So the appreciation on them has been very small compared to houses. So that's a bit of a neg. And to be honest, I just can't see that flats are going to rocket in value unless they're unique and they're in a really good location, or they're very special, they're penthouses, or they're part of something amazing. I just can't see that they're going to give the same capital appreciation as houses will. Another problem with flats is, I think if you wanted to sell a flat, people do not buy flats in 2019 to live in. What they do is they rent a flat, and then they save up, and then they buy a house. So if you've got flats and you're trying to sell them, you're going to struggle to sell them to people that are going to actually live in them, homeowners. You're going to sell them to investors. And if you're selling them to investors, investors never want to pay the full price. They want to get squeezed the lowest. So again, wanting to sell them afterwards, unless you're prepared to sell them quite low, I think you're going to struggle to sell them. But the biggest problem I have with flats, the number one reason I tell people not to buy flats and to be careful, is because of the service charge and ground rent. What does that mean? Because you don't own the land, because if you just buy a flat inside a building, you don't own the building, you don't own the land, you're just buying that apartment. So what that means is that you have to pay a service charge and a ground rent to the person who does own the land, and to keep everything like the communal areas all okay. And the scary thing about flats is you cannot predict what that service charge or ground rent might be in the future. So they can change it. Sometimes it might just be a couple £100 a year. Sometimes it can be a couple thousand. So if you are going to buy a flat, just make sure that you do your proper research and you know exactly what your ROI, return on investment, is going to be. And you've included knocking off the ground rent and the service charges. So get that information. It's really important, because it can be a lot, and you can buy a flat and you can rent it out for £600 a month. And once you've paid your mortgage and your management, you might be left with £300 a month. But if your service charge and ground rent come down to £600 a year, that's 2 months rent totally wiped out just because it's a flat and not a house. So that's something you really need to be careful of. So I think overall my advice would be flats are okay, apartments, that's the posh word for saying flat, they're okay, but if you're gonna buy one, number one, make sure that you're aware that you probably aren't gonna own the land. Secondly, be really careful on what the ground rent and the service charge are so you can work out your figures properly. And thirdly, make sure that it's attractive. Make sure that there's something special, there's something unique so that when you go to want to resell it, you're gonna not have such a hard time rather than just being like a little tiny studio with 50 others the same in a big block. I'd be a bit careful of those properties. So I hope you found that video useful. My big suggestion, if you're gonna go down flats, I have to say this, is if you buy the whole building and then convert it into flats, that's totally different. That's totally different because then you own the land, you've got complete control. And another good thing about flats that you could do is you could buy them and rent them out as serviced accommodation. So that could be another reason where they could be really profitable. So it is grey, it's not black and white, but I hope that helps you when you're doing your research. Something I really suggest that you check out is I've done a video called What Makes a Good Property Investment, which just talks about all the things you need to look for, the basics, before you buy any property investment. You can check that out, there's a video right here. Also, if you want to spend 2 days actually doing this, finding deals, getting up your laptops, I'd really suggest that you come down to the Property Investors Crash Course on the house, free on me. You can get tickets right here, and don't forget to subscribe over here as well.